Spend some time away from your office bay to the Good Cafe. Open data, go open data, open data, go open data. We meet up virtually, our beverages are free for open data coffee. Open data, go open data, open data, go open data. Well, welcome to the Good Cafe. It's Wednesday, September the 8th, 2021, and welcome to the Good Cafe. Today we're brewing up something special for you. Open Data 101. Hello, everybody. I'm Keith McDonald, Director of Communications for Good, and your moderator host for today. And I'm quite excited about what we're going to be doing today. Let me just take care of one message I'd like to start things off with. The fact is we are taping this for our GoodTube channel so that those who want to see it again can watch it. And for anyone who hasn't been able to see it and they get wind of it, they'll be able to see it on our GoodTube YouTube channel. So we want to welcome everybody. Looks like we got around 39 participants already, which is fantastic. So welcome aboard. Today, we are going to do something a little bit different for the cafe. It's really kind of a cafe/webinar. We're going to be presenting our Open Data 101. This was written and visualized by Yuri Konga, who will be joining us a bit later, and produced and narrated it. So it's going to be a full presentation that we're going to run. And when we come back, we're looking to get some comments from you and have a quick analysis, if you like. Did we nail it, or is there other things we could do? We've been working on these kind of things for a long time, and in fact, we're working in association with the Canadian Open Data Society. So for those who may not be aware of either the Canadian Open Data Society or us, I thought we'd start out with just a little bit of information about the two of us. And as I say, again, we've been collaborating on this concept for quite some time. So us, which is Go Open Data, or Good, started with a one-day conference in 2013. And since then, we've held two-day conferences around the province of Ontario. Of course, in 2020, we had to cancel the event due to COVID. But in 2021, we returned with our first virtual conference, and that was 3 days with workshops, conference day, and a hackathon. Good became incorporated as a nonprofit in 2019 and launched our website in January 2021, which seems like ages ago, but really it wasn't that long ago. And we offer memberships and monthly events such as the Good Cafe and webinars, and of course our annual conference. CODS initially started as a one-day event as well in 2013. It was put on by the BC Open Data Society at that time. The conference continued with various locations across Canada, and the organization was incorporated as a nonprofit in 2020, and it too offers webinars and an annual conference, which is actually coming up next week, September 15th and 16th, and it's being supported by the City of Montreal. And should do a shout out to Paul Connor from CODS as well, who's had a lot of chats with us about the content and so on, about what we're going to do today. So as I mentioned, it's a collaboration, and we put this together just recently as a result of some of our discussions and so on. So it's really our pilot presentation, if you like. So we really are hoping to get some solid feedback. So get your pens and paper out as you watch this. And if anything occurs to you as to not being quite as understandable as you might want it to be, please let us know about that when we have the chat portion. We'll come back and take some Q&A for sure. So that being said, folks, I'm about ready to start it, and we'll see you on the other side. Welcome to Open Data 101, presented by the Go Open Data Association in collaboration with the Canadian Open Data Society. There are official definitions of open data, which we'll get into later, but we thought it would be more practical to start with some context, which we find in this video from the county of Grande Prairie, Alberta.
The County of Grande Prairie has joined governments across the world who are opening their files and unlocking their hard drives, unleashing the potential of open data. This open information is changing the way people work, make day-to-day decisions, and solve problems. Open data takes information that the government has been collecting for its own use for years and makes it available for anyone to use. The data is uploaded to an online data catalog and is free and accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As always, sensitive information or information subject to confidentiality and privacy legislation will remain private and secure. Most of us think of data as just numbers, statistics, and spreadsheets. But data is our day-to-day experiences, what goes on around us in our homes, on our farms, in our communities, and across the world. We can take that information and use it as it is, slice it and dice it into a format we find useful, or even combine publicly available data with private data and create something completely new and useful. Open data makes our governments more transparent and accountable. But just as important, it makes it easier for citizens to communicate with government and with each other. That leads to collaboration and cooperation. People become more informed and engaged. Businesses can save time and make smarter decisions. Around the world, open data is being used in a number of creative ways, simplifying tasks people do every day. Here's some examples being used. A smartphone application to find the nearest walk-in clinic, pharmacy, or emergency department. In just one tap, you can view the location, the hours, and even the services the clinic offers. You can even access a one-stop source of highway construction information, which is used to help commuters find alternate routes around construction zones. And these are only a few of the endless possibilities for open data. Open data is a powerful, innovative concept that allows easy access of information to citizens in order to build better workforces, better communities, and a better society. Open data, making the County of Grand Prairie and you partners in growth and innovation.
Now let's dive into some basics about data and open data. This pyramid illustrates the relationships among data, information, and knowledge. From the bottom to the top, you can see that data is basically facts and figures which relay something specific, but they're not organized in any way. Moving up to information, that's contextualized, categorized, calculated, and condensed data, which leads to knowledge, the know-how, understanding, experience, insight, intuition, and contextualized information. You might say data is like atoms of information. Information is what you get from data by applying process to it, and knowledge is the understanding or insight you get from information by drawing a conclusion from it. Digital data versus information for the public. There is a distinction between data for computers and for people. Data in a digital form works for computer programs, but not for people. We can't read code easily. There are two kinds of data, quantitative and qualitative. You can use numbers to describe quantitative, things like counts, measurements, coordinates. Qualitative, you can't count it, but you can observe and record it, colors, shapes, textures, jurisdictions, etc. Now examples, counting how many votes, that's quantitative. But votes for a party or in a poll area, that's qualitative. In addition to types of data, we need to understand that there is a data spectrum, as defined by the UK's Open Data Institute, or ODI. Now that runs from being closed data to shared data to open data. The spectrum also notes that data can differ in size, small, medium to big data, and also classes of data, personal, commercial, and government data. Closed data is typically related to internal confidential data, some of which may be shared, for example, sales reports, but only with internal access. There is some overlap into shared data via named access, such as providing access to a Google spreadsheet. Shared data has a number of variations which overlaps into both closed, as I just mentioned, and open data. The sharing can happen via group-based access to data, for example, medical research data, some sharing for COVID-19. Sharing can also happen via public access to data and information, such as a Twitter feed that links to a file. But open data, that's the ultimate, most desired endgame for the data spectrum. Open data defined. So, what is open data? The often referenced definition is provided by the Open Knowledge Foundation. Open data and content can be freely used, modified, and shared by anyone for any purpose. This is the succinct definition, but let's expand a bit here. Open data is also viewed as being timely and comprehensive digital data that can be freely accessed, used, reused, shared, mixed, and built on by anyone, anywhere, anytime, for any purpose. Open data is free, both in the technical sense, for example, not limited to one type of software that can read it, and the legal sense, not costing anything, and you're told you can mash it up with other data. You can republish it, interpret it in any way for commercial, political, or other purposes. Now, what is the framework for open data? Let's take a look at the core principles of open data. The principles for open data have gone through an evolution over the years and now landed on 6 principles that were developed via the community and the International Open Data Charter, who are the curators for the principles as well as leading open data-related initiatives. Here's our attempt at describing the principles in layperson's terms. Open by default. As the name implies, it states that all government data should be available and open to access. There are exceptions to this rule, such as personal information and security data. The open by default principle is often the cornerstone of open data, open government policy. Timely and comprehensive. This principle speaks to the value proposition for the effective use of open data. In most cases, if the data is not current or the data set coverage not complete, the ability to use the data may be greatly diminished. Accessible and usable. For open data, accessibility is an imperative. This means the data must be easily found, for example, in an open data portal versus being scattered across several web pages. And it needs to be easily accessed. To be usable, open data needs to be digital and machine readable in common formats, for example, CSV files, not a PDF. In addition, the data must have open data licensing that allows it to be used without restrictions. Comparable and interoperable. The principle speaks to the need to compare data and to have the ability of systems and software to exchange data. To be most effective and useful, data should be easy to compare within and between sectors, across geographic locations, and over time. To be able to exchange and or combine data, there's a need to have data standards in place. Challenges include trying to combine data sets with differing formats, such as the date. One set has year, month, day. The other set has day, month, year. For improved governance and citizen engagement. Open data has the capacity to let citizens and others in government have a better idea of what officials and politicians are doing. This transparency can improve public services and help hold governments to account. Open data provides opportunities for enhanced and meaningful citizen engagement, for example, hackathons, which we'll discuss later. For inclusive development and innovation. Finally, open data can help spur inclusive economic development. For example, greater access to data can make farming more efficient, or it can be used to tackle climate change. We often think of open data as just about improving government performance, but there's a whole universe out there of entrepreneurs making money off the back of open data. These principles may appear to be overwhelming, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and implementing these principles cannot be done in a day either. Rather, they are implemented incrementally through changing data collection, data maintenance, and data archiving. There are also some overarching principles, such as the open government principles of transparency, accountability, and being participatory. The open data principles align with the broader open government principles. The Ontario Information and Privacy Commissioner's Office, or IPC, provides a key framework for transparency via their Access by Design document and also their important Privacy by Design principles. All levels of government typically will have someone responsible for providing access to information and managing the Freedom of Information, or FOI, process, and a different person to manage the privacy aspects of providing data. For example, must not release personally identifiable data. The personal data graphic illustrates some examples of personally identifiable data, including your name, address, health conditions, income, cultural profile. However, this type of information is available from agencies such as Statistics Canada in an aggregated form, so no individual can be identified. How to find access? Well, One of the greatest values of open data is actually discovering data and accessing it through your own organization's open data portal. Most people don't know what their organization has, and in the old days, you needed to jump through hoops and sign a data sharing agreement with the department you were getting it from. And often the data was in a format that you couldn't use. Now we have consistent data sharing licenses that most public sector organizations use, and you'll find most open data portals have a number of standard data formats, such as the CSV files I mentioned earlier. Today, it's still awkward to find thematic data, for example, environmental data, which can reside in 4 levels of government portals and associated agencies, such as conservation authorities and civil society groups. To address this, what's coming in the next few years is a federated data search, so you'll be able to search the combined open data portals across Canada and potentially international data from organizations such as the United Nations and the European Union. Open Data Access, Ontario's data authority. This is simply an FYI to keep you current on what's happening related to data access in Ontario. The Ontario Digital Service is exploring what an open data authority might look like and what it could do. The graphics here are 2 slides from their August 25, 2021 consultation webinar. The initiatives seek to increase access to high-value government data, improve data infrastructure, ensure privacy and transparency, and promote equity and accessibility. It's notable that at this stage, just starting, they state that the data authority will not share personal data, identify you, compromise the safety of your information, or collect additional information about you. This is something that we should follow to see where it goes and how it might benefit our organizations. Open data outcomes in our everyday lives. Open Day started as an initiative of civil society, promoting access to government data, thereby promoting transparency. One perceived benefit was to ease freedom of information requests for routine inquiries. Here's some added examples where open data is put to work. Weather forecasting, transit data for ride scheduling apps on mobile phones. And there's more. Genealogy and cemetery data, election voting, turnout, expense, and donor data, scientific observations like counting crows, neighborhood observations like noise data, government budgets and programs. The Open Government Partnership includes 78 nations, Canada is one, and 76 subnationals, Ontario is one, as members. But now everyone can publish open data. Private businesses, Google, GitHub, Uber, and others have opened selected data sets. Nonprofits and charities, notably FundTracker by Asia, a Montreal company, uses and generates open data on corporate and charitable grants and donations. Scientists. The publication of open science data actually began in 1957 to allow the verification of scientific claims by allowing others to look at the reproducibility of results and to allow data from many sources to be integrated to give new knowledge. Famously, the human genome is open data, and there's an open data consortium for geospatial data. From a citizen's view, Barcelona comprehensively reversed the usual unconsented flow of data permissions from citizens to corporations and governments. They are leading a group of fearless cities worldwide enacting similar principles. Real-world experience. In looking at the real world of the open data ecosystem, there are a couple of areas that stand out. Collaboration and sharing among stakeholders. The Niagara Area and Municipalities and Region Open Data Portal, or the Ontario Public Sector Open Data, PSOD. This is a collaborative with municipal representatives and a good member as co-chairs. The move towards data and process standardization. Examples, the Standards Council of Canada Data Governance Standardization, or Municipal Information Systems, the Association Pilot Project on Open Data Standards. And finally, community engagement. The best example here are the many in-person and virtual hackathons happening frequently around the world. Complexities, reality checks. We felt it was important to do a reality check on open data, especially with the public sector where most open data lives. Government is often portrayed as being bureaucratic with a corporate culture that is resistant to change. This characterization can vary greatly among organizations, but getting buy-in to something new will always require a business case, illustrating the value to both the organization and the people they serve. One of the often used arguments for moving forward with open data relates to the larger principles of open government, being transparent, accountable, and being participatory, which all politicians can agree on as being important for public service. There is also a strong case for moving forward by referencing the fact that open government and open data has become the norm in many organizations, which likely includes some neighboring jurisdictions. This is also true from a thematic or departmental perspective, where making their data open has enhanced internal processes and service delivery. Certainly, Rome wasn't built in a day. And we say again, neither is open data. There is a process that typically involves developing policy, preparing data for publication, designing and creating an open data portal, undertaking community engagement, and maintaining all aspects of an open data program. This can be done incrementally, by starting small and scaling as resources allow. For those starting out, it's beneficial to tap into the open data community to learn from those who've gone through this and leverage their best practices. The early days of open data saw the initiative being done off the side of the desk from dedicated people who believed in the value of open data. Today, it's important to recognize that there should be a plan to resource the development and maintenance of an open data program. You may wish to use a pilot project to help build the business for a proposed program together with a resource plan that should include an open data steering coordinating committee, an open data lead, and also a department, departmental leads, and any external resources support. Bottom line, your open data initiative will be limited to your organization's capacity. Having said that, open data has the potential to create improved internal processes, which offsets the need for new resources and reallocates resources to different tasks. This can vary significantly depending on your organization's current state. It's doable, and many have gone before you. Open data community, local to global. The open government and open data community has grown significantly since its beginnings in 2008. Aspects like data sharing has been going on much earlier than that. We've noted a sampling of nonprofits from local, like the Go Open Data Association, to national, like the Canadian Open Data Society, and longtime open data advocates and researchers, such as Open North and the Governance Lab from NYU, which Good also collaborates with. At the global level, we have the International Open Data Charter, which Good is a supporting institution, and the Open Government Partnership, which began with 8 members in 2011, with President Obama as co-chair, and now has 78 members. These organizations and many related organizations provide information that assists with developing a policy framework, operational guidelines, and ongoing research. And there is open knowledge in the Open Data Institute in the UK. These are all a small sampling of a much larger community that you can tap into. In Canada, there is a collaboration at all levels of government, including the Federal Provincial Coordinating Committee. A provincial example is the previously mentioned PSOD, Public Sector Open Data Collaborative. Local collaboratives include Niagara Open Data, which includes 13 municipalities and school boards. And there is the West Parry Sound Geography Network, providing shared services of GIS and open data for 7 local communities. As open data has matured, there has been an increase in community events. With Good and CODS, there are typically monthly events, such as our Good Cafés and webinars, in addition to the annual conferences held by both organizations, Good in the spring and CODS in the fall. One notable type of community event is called a hackathon, not to be confused with the bad people that hack us. No, hackathons bring together people in the community and are open to everyone to participate in a challenge that addresses a community need. Now, you don't need to be a programmer to create an app. It could be about defining principles, creating a framework for policy, or simply researching the topic to recommend next steps. There are a wealth of opportunities to get involved and to expand your network that can assist you with your open data initiative. Open data resources. For those who are new to open data, there are many resources that you can leverage on your own and a community with groups that you can contact to help you begin your open data initiative. We've noted both Good and CODS providing some resources, while other nonprofits such as Open North, GovLab, the Open Knowledge Foundation, and the Open Data Institute have numerous resources and initiatives underway, together with government resources, such as the Federal Do-It-Yourself Toolkit, the Ontario Government Open Government website, and a variety of resources from the local level, such as Toronto's Open Data Master Plan and other municipal plans. Open data, is it for you? After all we've talked about in the prior slides, you may be asking yourself whether open data is for you. So here's a few scenarios that might help you decide on the relevance of an open data program. Repetitive data requests. We know that many different types of data are constantly requested by internal and external clients. Requests such as zoning bylaw boundaries, building permit status, COVID-19 statistics, flood plan boundaries, budget data. It's been found that in these types of circumstances, there are efficiencies in creating a process that makes the data available as open data that both internal and external users can access via standard open data license. Data for operational needs. It's been discovered that sometimes different departments will go to external resources to acquire data for their operational and project needs, often at considerable cost, while not realizing that the same data is available within their organization. Many organizations don't have a comprehensive inventory of the data that exists. Lots of data is in silos, and there is little data knowledge sharing. Often you hear, "I don't know, someone else could use our data." Open data addresses this scenario. Value proposition for data collection. Every organization is structured by operational functions, for example, finance, IT, planning, engineering. Over time, these departments or divisions have developed processes for their mandate and collected the data that supports planning and day-to-day operations. The cost of data collection and maintenance is substantial. It's been shown that making your data available as open data also fosters innovation, with entrepreneurs creating apps or services that were never previously considered for that data. This creates an economic development opportunity. So, is open data for you? At minimum, you owe it to yourself to research the potential benefits of open data to your organization and to your citizens and stakeholders. You may already have open data operating in your organization or have a policy mandate to undertake open data. So reach out to those who have been down this road and create a plan that suits your organization with appreciation of the capacity to undertake this program. This presentation was visualized and written by Yuri Konga. I'm Keith McDonald, producer and narrator. For more information, go to goopendata.ca. And there you go, folks. So that's our presentation. I noticed we didn't have too much drop-off from our audience. That's fantastic. So what we're going to do is open things up. I'm going to invite Yuri and Connie McCutcheon, that is, Director of Community Engagement, and Yuri, of course, is our Executive Director, to open up their cameras. There they are. And we're going to just start talking about what you just saw. This is the first time both of you have seen it, although Yuri wrote it. And as well, please start throwing in some questions and we'll get to them as we go. Questions maybe isn't the right word. We're looking for reactions, comments. Perhaps you'll have some questions. Actually, listen, we got one already. At least it says good overview of open data. Can you add the link to the resources in the chat? I wish I'd thought of that because there's a lot of resources. I think the best we can do is compile that and send it out in a mail to you. We're going to send out a poll as well, so look for that. Actually, in a follow-up, we'll definitely do that. And yes, Connie, go ahead.
Well, Keith, I was just going to note that I've thrown in a link to the Open Data Toolkit that was developed by quite a few of us working with the Canadian federal government. And I think folks will find that useful. There's a lot of, if you want to dig deeper into a topic such as a license that was, in this presentation, right? I think you'll find some tools and information in that toolkit. So there's one example, I think, of where you can find further information.
Excellent. So that is in our chat right now. Yuri, have you got anything that you'd like to throw into the mix here?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So I'm going to put in the link for our resources page, which we actually just launched this morning.
Fantastic.
So a lot of what was mentioned will be on that resource page, but it's actually something that's just a starting point, and we're hoping for people to contribute their own suggestions as far as resources. And similarly, with the poll or survey that goes out, we're really looking for feedback from you folks as to what we missed on the 101, what we may need to do to make it better, and also going beyond just the general introduction, what you'd like to see in an Open Data 102. Okay.
We do have one comment that's come in. Actually, this is in the Q&A side. They might have missed it, but is there an act of government, act? Yeah, I guess it's act or government. I think it means act of government, policy and procedure on open data, which we don't see from a cursory review. Probably provided and missed it. Thanks, great job, everyone. I think we could say that there is and there isn't, right? I mean, Canada federally, there is certainly directives, if you like, and same with Ontario and other provinces. But I've always felt it's a little disconnected from delivery. I'm not sure whether Connie and Yuri would agree. So there's things like, we shall be transparent and open government and provide data and so on. But the actual delivery of it is a little suspect at times, if we can be honest about it, right? Where they don't release everything. And the party in power at the time may also talk about it, but when certain issues, let's say, emerge, they don't necessarily release it. And most recent example is federally, right, where the other parties in the House of Commons was requesting the data on the firing of 2 people out in Winnipeg. And the Liberals were actually suing the House of Commons back. That's ended now with the election call, but a perfect example of, I think, not practicing what you preach exactly. Pretty dramatic step as well to actually sue the House of Commons. So, yeah, the short answer is there is, but I think if you start to drill down, and we could spend a whole cafe or webinar on these acts and directives and talk about these very things. So I think being dramatically honest, we could say that the delivery still needs to be further augmented. So it really doesn't matter what party is in power.
Keith, I've actually thrown a link to the Open by Default directive that I believe was announced in 2015 at the Good event in Niagara, right? And just, what, at the time, the anticipation for what that would mean, we were also very excited. And then you had a slide that talked about it, reality checks, right? Reality comes to light that there's so much culture change. There's a lot of moving pieces that have to come together for directives and statements like open by default to really see full fruition. And I find they're aspirational goals.
Yeah, very good point. We aspire, which may very well be reasonable in the early days, but we've been dealing with open data for a while now. So, let's get to it and at it, as Tom Connors would say. So I think, we could generally, as citizens, push harder, I think, for governments to go further and certainly faster at this point, because it's really been around since 2008. It's getting up there. We did have one comment too. A live rather than recorded voice might provide further interaction. Just a thought. I would agree this could be presented live. Having done the voiceover for it, that would be a lot to memorize. I hate reading notes if you're doing a live presentation. So I think we'd have to get comfortable, I guess, with the content. But anyway, I think that would be a plan, that this could easily be delivered as a live presentation as well. So thanks for that comment. For the next cafe, how individuals and communities are getting involved with and using open data. Good suggestion. There's actually so many examples that one of our hopes, by the way, for the cafe was that we would have some of the municipalities coming into the cafe and talking about what they're doing. It's a fairly informal setup. Could be a webinar too, but the cafe certainly would be a great place to come in and not feel too much pressure to have a super formal presentation ready and just discuss what you're doing, what excites you about it, what makes you passionate about open data, and bring in some of your citizens who are engaged with you. So I put out that to folks listening. If you've got something going, please get in touch with us and we'll gladly put you into a cafe.
Keith, it makes me think about a data set that I think is great for communities that are considering releasing open data, right? I'll throw the link to it in the chat. And it is, in my opinion, it's one of the most basic data sets, and it's really who represents you, right? And Open North developed a template for this. So if anybody's thinking about doing their first open data release, right, have a look at what the work that Open North did there and the communities that are releasing. The beauty in this example, right, is it does allow the community, now they could build an app, and you know what, your counselor is going to be X because it was released as open data. And it's already released. It's stuff that's on the website anyway. You're just putting it in a more useful format. So when I've encouraged folks to do open data, I suggest that is like the first data set. They pair that with the license and they're good to go, right? The policy, the processes, also necessary. But I mean, eating the elephant, I guess, one bite at a time.
Yeah, good point. It's surprising how much data is kicking around, already released on your website. And when you talk about it as being open data, sometimes there's like, well, we don't want to do that, but it's already been released. So put it into the open data portal so that it's in one place that you can go and find it there instead of having to look around.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity too for those municipalities that are doing websites to put a link to the data that provides the page of content on the website and tie it back to the content, right? So if you're talking about sewers, I'm just going to say many municipalities might have a page on sewers. They could put a link to any data sets they might have that relate to sewers.
Right.
Keith, I just put up some information on Bill C-301 from the federal government, which is interesting from the point of view that it's saying that the Access to Information Act is going to be replaced by, quote, the Open Government Act, which is significant, right? So that open government is actually recognized at the national level in the way of legislation.
Applause. A couple more comments have come in. Let's see, good discussion. Yes, I'm always concerned about liability, either personal or for the municipality. Everyone is so litigious these days. Very true. Yeah, to my knowledge, no one has been sued at this point for open data, generally because it's well vetted. I mean, the privacy folks have a kick at the can before it gets released. And I think there's a general awareness about, what's going on. The issues might be around accidental release of names or identifiable data. So it is something that you definitely have to have a crew on regarding that and do the diligence there. I know personally of some data that did get released by accident, and it was immediately removed. So, I mean, again, there's due diligence, and then there's actually never making a mistake. It's a touchy one, I suppose, because once in a while things may happen. So it's good to be aware of it, and like I say, have a person or a team identified to be responsible for that. The danger, of course, if you have one person looking after it and they're gone on vacation and something happens. So it's definitely putting into the mix of open data. And sometimes your city clerk's office, if they're dealing already with privacy issues, freedom of information, it's the logical place to throw that side of the coin into privacy protections, for sure. Another comment, how can small municipalities benefit from open data to support asset management that is mandated? Do they need to hire staff to develop an open data policy first? Who would like to take that?
Well, my own experience with small municipalities is that they realistically can't do it on their own. So typically what happens is that there's some kind of shared service or collaborative agreement that's developed among area municipalities, and it doesn't have to be specific to a county or a region or what have you. It's just those that want to collaborate on coming up with kind of the same end product. And I'll use the case of the West Perry Sound GIS collaborative, which is 7 very small municipalities, which on their own could not undertake that. And they also, as part of the collaboration, undertook open data. So that's probably the only way you're going to be able to undertake it. And I'll also defer to Connie, and she can speak to the Niagara area experience.
So I'm actually going to speak of a broader experience that I have in looking at the survey results, right? There's been Public Sector Digest, right? Did quite a bit of surveying in municipalities and asked questions. And one of them was, do you have a policy? And this area, in my opinion, falls under the what I call good, better, best. When I spoke with our communities, the people were like, release it when it's at good, don't wait for it's at best. There were many municipalities in those survey results that did not have policies in place. So I would say it's good to release open data. The best way is to have already got a policy before you do that, right? But I think that there's value in an iterative approach to this, right? Because I know that for some, that would be the hurdle that would prevent them, right? So there's lots of different ways to look at it, and I you know what, I think every situation is unique. Every municipality is unique. You have to know the landscape and culture of municipality. Can you get away without having a policy and develop it as you go? Maybe, right? Maybe you can't.
I think to leverage some of the other folks that have done this already. I used to work for the City of Toronto, for example, and it took us a long time to make a policy. While that was happening, of course, we were releasing open data. So you can do it, but there's no point in starting from scratch. So again, contact colleagues around the province even who've done this already. And you'll find, I think, lots of good literature and a really great start to formulate your own policy. There may be things that you choose not to include or alter slightly, but really a lot of that work has already been done. So there's no point in necessarily starting fresh and alone. Definitely leverage the folks out there.
You, Keith, you're reminding me about when we were talking about that earlier question, right? About being sued for releasing open data. Most of the open data portals have a disclaimer, right? And that's one of the tools that is used to help mitigate that risk. And another way that we can collaborate back in the early days is the province shared their process to release open data, that they had it vetted by their legal folks, their privacy folks, their communication folks, and then it was released, right? So that's already been ironed out by quite a few municipalities that developed a process to release. Don't reinvent that wheel, right? Collect a few different processes and look at how it's going to fit your municipality best.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a comment as well as from Jonathan. Would be good to curate these resources on the new Good Resources page. Not a bad idea. Certainly one of the things Good wants to do, by the way, is be a resource to other resources, if you like. So that's a great suggestion. And I think as we work on that page, we'll definitely add some of that. Another question, how can we make these curated resources more discoverable in digital technology? That's a good question. Lots of times it's surprising how well searches will work, by the way. When we launched our website, for example, a matter of days before it started to appear, and you could type in good even, and it was starting to show up in results. So don't underestimate the value of searching for these resources. Try to be as specific, traffic data, City of Guelph, open data, those kind of things as search terms may help you. Would you agree, Connie, in particular?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? Join a group. If you're a municipality, join up with PSOD, join up with Good, right? Talk to your peers, right? If you can't find it through search, we can help you locate it.
Yep. We're just after 1 o'clock too, or just coming up to 1 o'clock. Normally we wrap up at this time, and I can see some people are departing. We can go for a little bit longer. It's certainly something we'd like to do. If you have any more comments that you'd like to make, please do, and we'll just see what you've got. I remember I went and saw Paul McCartney a couple of times, and he always, with a couple of songs left, starts to sort of indicate, you know, the show might be over. So we're getting close to the wrap up, but if you have any other comments you'd like to add, great, I see one already. Note 2, the warning around AI and open data in the case of biometric database the US set up that the Taliban may have access to. Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I don't think that was ever meant to be open data, was it? But it does talk about cyber hacking, those areas, right, where you need to think about that. I mean, it's possible that your open data portal could get hacked. So you need to have your security checks there. And obviously the data behind the data, what I'm saying here is if you're aggregating up, which is often a good way to still release data, but not actually identify anybody. If somebody can get in behind the wall, if you like, and get to that data. So yeah, it's still part of the overall intent of a secure website. And as we know, some municipalities have had ransom happening. So yeah, it's an important thing to note. And the unexpected could always happen. So even though it's open data, there's still a back end to that data that might be at risk if, in particular, there were identifiable things in that data. Sorry, I'm just reading these. Oh, jealous you saw Paul McCartney. Yeah, he was good. Very good. Our major is fearful of ransomware and the cost to local governments. Yeah, it's definitely happened to some municipalities already. And we're finding some are paying, right? Because it seems to be the quickest route. But it does, you know, deal with things like backing up your data. And that can be true of an open data site as well. On today, off tomorrow, for whatever reason. In fact, at one point, Toronto was working on content management on the website, changing things over, and there was a freak accident which deleted a number of things, and it was immediately returned through backup, right? So yeah, it's still something to consider. It's all part of it. When we talk about iterative and the aspects of starting an open data thing, it does dovetail with existing processes and so on. So yeah, make sure you're talking to the folks that deal with things like security and backups. And part of your process, your flow, should deal with that. So we talk about a policy. Well, that would probably be in the policy, right? Who looks after what safeguards are there, who's responsible for what. Okay. Yuri's just reminding me to please copy chat content. Sorry, Yuri, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think the comments are all relevant and speaks to some of what we might be what we might use as content for Open Data 102, because obviously we have to go beyond where we are right now. And the other thing that I would kind of emphasize to the people who are new to open data is that there are a lot of organizations and individual departments within municipal government, as an example, that have done this. So as to Keith's point about please don't reinvent the wheel, come speak to us. We offer some mentorship for our corporate members, and that this is an ongoing process, but there's been a lot of existing successes that you can point to, which helps in defining your business case. So by all means, get a hold of us, and we'd love to chat with you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, it looks like things have died down, so I'd like to thank everybody for your comments. We will send out this mail with a poll, and please answer that for us. And I'm just going to put that slide up again. And also, if you have any further comments that you'd like to make, just return the email, respond to us, and we'll put that into our thought process and see what can happen. Reminder too, this will be up on YouTube, the presentation again as a separate entity, as well as the full GOODcafé, and have a look at it again if you like, and and see if it is as clear the second time as the first time, or perhaps clearer. It's like, binge watching on Netflix, check it out more than once. I'm seeing lots of thank yous. That's wonderful. So thank you too. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, Connie. And we've got more things planned in the fall. Reminder of the CODS event, which is next week, September 15th and 16th. And hopefully we'll see some of you there. As always, be good to each other, and we'll see you next time. We'll just close with a quick credit reel. Thanks again, guys.
Virtually, our beverages are free for open data coffee.
Y'all come back now, you hear?